Hello and welcome to 40 Cray, a podcast led by a pair of almost 40, kind of like late 30s guys whose adult lives and responsibilities have not yet, hopefully never, will eclipsed their zeal for stupid nerdy stuff. From 40K to video games to 90s pop culture, if it's your fandom, we're your tandem. Of course, this is Ben, aka LS Demon on Reddit and various other places where gamer tags are needed. And of course, I'm joined by Tom.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going, man. How are you doing?
Doing well.
This is our first podcast of the new year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Did you ring it in style?
No, I had work the next day, so I slept very early. We had hors d'oeuvres, though. We made pigs in a blanket and various other fried things.
I remember when we were actually able to hang out before COVID and before you moved away. You guys had like the most epic hors d'oeuvre game.
Yeah, Amanda likes to go big.
Go big or go home, right?
Yeah. She loves hosting.
She's really good at it too. I remember like I came over, it was just like a little, it wasn't even like Halloween yet, it was just October, and you guys carved out a pumpkin, filled it with nacho cheese, and then you cut the pumpkin so that it had like an open mouth so the cheese was coming out of the mouth. I was like, I think I ate all of that cheese too.
Yeah. She's definitely a Pinterest fan, all those crafts and whatnot.
Well, maybe that's a good segue. Speaking about crafts, of course, we always cover a lot of stuff on the show. And today we got three things that we're going to do. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about some Kill Team meta observations. I think we've talked in the past that Tom and I love Kill Team. That's kind of where we started getting into 40K because it was approachable. And then from there, after my little Kill Team battle report / observations, Tom, you're gonna talk a bit about some experience we've had with Roll20. Mm-hmm. And from there, we have a fun top 5 best video games that Ben and Tom, this is purely subjective, just what we think of all time and how they could fit into 40K. Yeah. All right. So,
that is what's going to happen.
That is what's going to happen. Okay, cool. Well, Tom, when was the last time you actually played a game of Kill Team?
It was against you.
Okay, so that was like months ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. Still haven't gotten to my local store.
Well, it's hard with COVID. Actually, all of our local stores are closed. I'm in DC area, and you're in kind of like the greater New York area. And so I basically play with my brother, who's kind of in my pod, and then there's one guy in my building, Phil, who we play with too. Just we've been around each other for the whole quarantine, so it's like, okay, well, we're probably in the same bubble. But it's been hard. Like, yeah, I can't get to a store. There's no tournaments going on for sure.
Phil, if you're listening, come on the show.
No, well, actually, he and my brother, I think we might have him on for like a full Kill Team meta analysis. Because they all play completely different factions. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks, Tom. I'm not giving you a lot to work with yet. But hey, do you remember when you and I were playing, was there like a gatekeeper faction?
Gatekeeper?
Like the one where like nobody could beat them, and it was like you had to like engineer your list to be able to beat them.
In our local meta, right, there were the guys that played at the GW, right? The campaign. The Sisters of Battle seem to do better than they should, right?
Yeah, well, that's also because they had all of the special. They had like Gottfried and Pius Vorn, and that was before they nerfed both of them because they could take voice of command, which was pretty powerful.
Right.
But yeah, because I think also, so I mean, you played Custodians for a little while. I remember I couldn't before we figured out you don't have to kill guys to win. It was like our early days. But I had a hard time trying to think. Like, I mean, there was a period where like Death Guard were like the go-to, and now they're pretty much easy to kill. But that's, okay, why am I bringing this up? Because the whole point is, like, one of the things about Kill Team, the meta has shifted a lot, and not even necessarily because of rules changes, just because of how people approach different factions. So, like, it was Death Guard in the beginning because they got a lot of cheap fodder, but they also had pretty tough guys. And then when people figured out multi-damage weapons were extremely important, that went away. And for a little while, it was like plasma spam. in between with like, Militarum and Mechanicus, and then before that, like Tyrannid swarms were pretty tough. Do you have like a foe that you hated to play the most?
Playing against Thousand Suns was annoying with the two sorcerers. You just had to focus more on positioning and line of sight when I just wanted to charge up the field and hit things with sticks.
Yeah, the line of sight. Well, it's with Grey Knights that's huge too. It's just that there's so few of them, and
Right.
they have to get so close. It's kind of. So let's see. So then, like, now the meta, like at least so the games we play, the one gentleman Phil, who again will be on the show, he plays Drukhari, which has been pretty top of meta lately. I think the one he particularly plays is like a rack focus, which WARCK, of course, not like a spice rack, of course. I'm sure that's what you were thinking of.
Well, of course.
Yeah. But they have a faction that gives them a 4-up invuln, and then they still have a 6-up feel no pain, and they're pretty cheap, so they're pretty good. I think Asuryani or Eldar, for those of us who like played in the 90s, are pretty good, but you have to be really talented to play them. But for us, like Tau, played by Phil, was the big gatekeeper for a while. Did you ever play against Tau?
Yeah, but the player didn't really know how to use them all that well. He let me get into close combat, and then it was pretty much over after that.
This Tau don't like close combat, do they?
Yeah, I mean, it's a meme, but it's also kind of true.
Yeah, I don't. By the way, I don't know why I hate the Tau. just like an idea. Maybe it's because they're like one of the newest factions. I don't think they fit the whole grimdark thing as well. They look like Gundams. I don't know. I just don't like them. But so anyway, so Tau, there's a couple reasons they're pretty strong. I don't think they're OP at all. It's just if you're not like prepared and you don't know the faction tactics and that kind of thing, it's tough. They have a couple really good strong points, which is drone spam. The drones fly. They got a lot of shots. What's the counter? Well, you realize the drones can't hit very well. So if you can even get obscured, they're not going to hit you most of the time. The other thing they have is very powerful rail rifles, which are pretty cheap and do ton of damage. AP4. They also have a type of drone that can like remove obscurement penalties. So the first time I played against them, I thought my little sorcerer guy for my Thousand Suns was obscured, and somehow he ended up with a 2+ to hit twice, and of course killed him in round 1. But yeah, so we've been playing against Tau for a while. They're pretty tough to counter. There are two things I wanted to share to the audience here that we found that are pretty good counters. One, I finally beat him with Tyrannids, is what I call like the gaunt conveyor belt. Do you remember I did this with your Custodes?
Yes, the fallback and recharge with the second one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at most you can kill like one gaunt per turn if you're a Custodes. Yeah. We tied that game, I think. I think it was a stalemate, right?
Yeah, we just gave up.
Because it wasn't even fun. It was like, I couldn't do anything to you. All our secondaries were kill related. And you know, like I get a gaunt, he'd get a flesh wound, and then I'd fall him back and charge you with a different one. Yeah. But anyway, I managed to do some creative, like, charge from cover stuff and doped him a little bit that way and just had some superior coverage. The things to watch out for if you charge into Tau, obviously they have for the greater good, so they can all overwatch at the same time. If you combine that with, there's a tactic which is 2 points, but for the entire turn, it allows one of the models to overwatch on a 4, 5, or 6, which in many cases is actually better than their shooting. He would have these model. I think he had like a crisis suit, which isn't really the meta anyway, but it had like 3 flamers or no, it wasn't flamers. I'm sorry, because that'd be stupid. It was like the missile cluster. So he was hitting on a 4, 5, or 6. But if you charge from cover, he can't see you. That mitigates greater good. The other thing I thought was really interesting, my brother who plays orcs and is like really good at orcs now, and they're another one that you have to be really specific about your movement to get them in the right charge range. But he uses a knob to completely obscure like an ammo runt. So because they can't see the ammo runt past the knob, the ammo runt charges everybody and gets them stuck in combat, and then the knob can safely charge back.
Right.
Freaking genius. So if you're out there, you're playing orcs, get your ammo run, make sure he's tiny, like the model is supposed to be. Put him behind a knob, and then use him to charge into people who won't be able to overwatch him.
Brilliant.
Okay, I think that's probably enough talking about. Look, man, do you have any thoughts about what do you think is the best faction right now in Kill Team?
I don't know. I've been out of the game for so long that I've just been focusing on painting, more hobbying.
Well, but by the time you get back in, it'll be something else anyway.
That's true. Yeah.
All right, so that's my piece. Some thoughts about playing Tau. I think they're a lot of fun. For me, like it's not important to win; it's important to have a close game because that means like you weren't completely surprised by anything. So it was pretty close. But we will get Phil to talk about maining with Tau and Drukhari. My brother to talk about maining with Orcs, and then Tom. I know you're a Noise Marine guy. You're an Emperor's Children guy. I think I'm a Thousand Sun guy for the most part. Although I play like 6 others, as do you. All right, Tom, you did a lot with Roll20. I'd love to turn it over to you a little bit because we got this new D&D campaign, and I was shocked how cool this was.
Yeah. So a while ago, we ran a campaign. We only got to like maybe level 7, like back in the day when you could actually hang out in person. And I was just like drawing the maps on a giant whiteboard with the dry erase markers and. When you entered a new section of the dungeon, draw it out, and it was cool. But I think this Roll20, I just started using this a couple of weeks ago for the new campaign we started, and it's just so much better. Pretty much the same type of deal. It reminds me a lot of RPG Maker, the old video games. That let you create a game and you lay down.
Was that back in the PlayStation era?
Yeah, they started. I think the original one was, and they had like 1 million. You lay down your map, and it kind of has a grid overlaid over it, and you can put down furniture and populate your dungeon with whatever you want. It took maybe 6 hours to get hang of the interface, how to use it efficiently, but you could do a lot of cool things. The line of sight really surprised me how cool that was. So how each player has the token that they control around the map, and you can, and then with the rules to like vision, how some races get dark vision to 60 feet, and you can set that radius, that vision radius, around the token that the player is controlling. So when they move through your dungeon, they can see everything that's within 60 feet, and everything else that they haven't explored yet is grayed out, like a fog of war. And you can, there's a tool that lets you create walls and obstacles that block line of sight, and they can't see past them, so you could have monsters hiding around corners and stuff. And it's just a really cool tool.
Yeah, I was really impressed. It's all like an isometric plane, but I really wasn't sure how much effort on the back end it was. So I think what we saw, you'd created like an inn and a city and like a battle spot was only, or like what do you call it? Like one engagement, one fight worth of like terrain.
Right.
So I wasn't sure like how much effort is it to create just like one of those screens. Like, so for example, we had like our party of 4 against like 6 were-rats. Like how hard was it to create like that battle scenario?
Well, once you figure out how to do it, it's pretty simple. Creating the map just takes the longest. You have to put each piece, like the build. It was an outdoor encounter, so there was the buildings and barrels and stalls and everything, like had open air stuff. Each one of those had to be placed separately and positioned. But once they're set up, then you can create the monsters in the encounter, and you can link those monster tokens to their entry in the compendium. Like it has the whole monster manual, pretty much.
Oh, seriously? So you can
Yeah.
like link it to, so you can say, hey, this is a were-rat, and it'll give you all the stats for it?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I want to work on getting more in depth with that. I think because you all have your character sheets on D&D Beyond, so I think I know two of the players are novices to the first time playing, so it might be a little in depth. But there's an add-on for Chrome and Firefox. That's why I asked you guys. Called Beyond 20 that kind of links Roll20 with D&D Beyond. So I can link your character sheet to your character in game, and then when you bring up your character sheet in Beyond D&D Beyond, you can click on whatever skill it is you need to make a roll for, and it will actually roll that dice in Roll20.
I don't want to sound like a curmudgeonly douchebag, but I almost feel like kids today are spoiled. Because do you remember how miserable it was to try to create characters with like pen and paper? And like I'm a math nerd anyway. Like I like, that's part of the reason I like Warhammer, because it's a lot of statistics anyway, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it took hours. And when you use D&D Beyond, it's a better interface, and it takes like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it, but at the same token, I'm like, you guys don't know what you're missing. You don't know the pain.
Yeah, I loved the pen and paper aspect of it back in the day. It felt like a spreadsheet to me.
It did. It was so complicated. So other questions. I remember I was leading a campaign with some of Gab's friends earlier in the year, like kind of the onset of quarantine, and I tried Roll20, and I had a lot of trouble. I think I spent probably like 8 hours for a probably like 3 hour little, it was like mini campaign.
Right.
Like it was a one shot, and it was a little frustrating. Like obviously it took you a little bit to get used to it. Any tips for anybody who's like starting Roll20 for the first time?
YouTube.
So stop listening to this and go on YouTube. Awesome.
There are so many so many things need to be correct. Like this needs to be ticked. This box needs to be ticked. Everything kind of needs to be right, and if one of those things is off, then the whole you have a black map and you don't know what you're doing. Right? That's why
Is that like intuitive, or I guess you need YouTube because some of it might not be 100% intuitive?
Yeah. So there's a couple of screens that you have to navigate through each time you're placing a new thing in a new zone. That's why we kind of ran through the test before we started. Like, can everybody see each other? Can everybody see where they are?
Yeah. That's true too, because it took us like 20-30 minutes to get going, because it was like one person couldn't hear somebody else, and then we couldn't see one person, because it's got like a Zoom type of functionality too, where you can see all the people and use it as your telephony platform. But yeah, that was frustrating. I could tell you were like, God damn, I spent 6 hours on this. Why isn't it working?
All right, you know what? I'm going to go back to the whiteboard and do my best to describe it to you guys.
That's awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to whatever we do next. I have high expectations, Tom.
Yeah, it should be fun.
It better be.
And it helps that you guys are all like hilarious.
Yeah, that is, so here's another thing, right? Like you and I have talked about this before. I think like one of the most important and underrated parts about like getting the good D&D group together is, what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. Right? So in the past, like we've had folks that are really into the max min, like, oh, I'm going to make a character that can do the most incredible damage, and I'm going to plot them out, which we kind of enjoy. But I think all the people in the group, myself and Gabrielle, who we met on the last episode, is playing too. We really like the role-playing part.
And I don't mind if everybody wants to min-max or if everyone wants to dick around and have a good time. But when you have a party that some of them want to min-max, some of them, it gets really difficult to please everybody.
Absolutely.
So it's just easier if everyone's going in with the same kind of mindset.
And one of the other guys on the team, or the party, I'm using all the wrong terminology. People are going to know I'm lying. Is my friend Bryant, who runs a podcast for Arizona Sports. We might have him on in the future. But actually, so he and I did improv together for years, and he is freaking hilarious. So it's always great when you have somebody who comes up with a really strong character and it's just like you're just dying the whole time. It's so fun.
Yeah.
He's like he's a half elf who is racist against gnomes because of some reason we don't know yet. So we have a character who's a gnome. So he's just like just going after the guy the whole time. It's so funny.
I hope that comes out.
Granted, we're not endorsing anti-gnomism, but you know, if it's all in good fun, yeah, you know.
They have little legs.
Well, they are like 2.5 feet tall or something. So. Mm-hmm. Who's your favorite gnome of all time?
David?
I was going to say David. David the gnome. In every wish and dream and happy home, you will find the kingdom of the gnome.
And what I love about Matt's gnome is that he's a deep gnome. It's the Sverfnebelin. So they're like the Drow and the Dorger, and the Sverfnebelins live in the Underdark, and the Drow and the Duergar are like evil. But the deep gnomes, they're just as like happy and comic as their above world gnomes, but they're just so beaten down by their environment that they're just like whatever. Like I'm trying, but it's really hard.
Which makes no sense because like the Underdark is legit like one of the worst places in fiction. Well, I mean, it's nothing compared to like Grimdark, but it's still pretty terrible. You got like the Mind Flayers and the Growl and Drow are sadistic evil people. Like what are they doing? You know what it is? It's probably some kind of like psychedelic mushroom that grows in the darkness.
The myconids.
Exactly. So they're probably like grinding those up, doing a little sniff and keeping it jolly. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, that makes me happy.
All right. Should we get into our main feature here?
Yeah, the main event.
The feature presentation. Tom, you and I, we're nerds of many kinds. We love video games. Absolutely. I was just playing one right before this. It's like one of the only ways I know how to unwind. Mm-hmm. One of the healthier ones too. So we played a lot of games together, and we thought, how do we integrate our love for video games with our love for 40K, especially given that the podcast is called 40K. Mm-hmm. So here's what we're doing. There have been a lot of okay Warhammer games, a couple good ones, but a lot of crap. So we're going to go through our 5 favorite games of all time that are not necessarily Warhammer games, although they can be, or Games Workshop branded games. And we're going to talk about how would we port that to be something cool in the 40K universe. Tom, I've been talking too much this podcast. Let me invite you to begin this wondrous journey. What's your number 5 game of all time?
I imagine that we're going to have some overlap. Because I
got some randos, so I don't know.
I guess the elephant in the room. Let's get it out of the way first. Final Fantasy VII.
Okay.
When I was thinking about this topic, and started like really comparing them, it kind of struck me how similar the 40K universe is. With Hojo, minor spoilers if anyone hasn't played it.
Spoilers for Final Fantasy, the original or the remake? I think the original, right?
The original, yeah.
So if you're playing the remake, maybe don't listen to, but just fast forward a little bit. Okay, go.
So Hojo, creating super soldiers by using genetic information from Genova. He's basically a Mara Stardy, right?
Yeah.
The Genova project, created super soldiers, and I can easily see that being ported. Crazy, wacky adventures. Sephiroth, Kind of like Horus.
Yeah.
Feels like he's entitled to the Promised Land, which would be, the unified
Galaxy.
Imperium. Right.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, so that struck me.
So Final Fantasy VII is not on my list, but it's definitely in my top 10 or 20. And it used to be in my top 5. I actually tried replaying the original with Gabrielle. We didn't get too far because it hasn't aged that well. But at the time when it came out, man, like I remember where I was when I bought it. I remember where I was when I played it. I used to get up before school like 2 hours because I hated school when that came out. It was like a couple bad years. So I would say, okay, I'm going to get up. I'm going to play Final Fantasy VII. For a couple hours, I'll feel better, and then I can go to school and deal with school, and then come home and I get to play again. Mm-hmm. That was how I got through like 6th and 7th grade. What for you? Like, what made it such an important or memorable game?
Well, at the time, I didn't even have a PlayStation, so I rented a PlayStation and Final Fantasy VII from Blockbuster, but I didn't have a memory card, so every time I played it, I had to turn it off like for dinner. I have to restart from the beginning, and I never made it past that scene in Midgar when Cloud is talking to Tifa right before he leaves to join Soldier. That was like the farthest I ever got until I actually bought a PlayStation and was able to play it for real.
And so, I mean, obviously, like there was some love there. Do you remember, like, was it the graphics? Was it the gameplay? Was it the story? Like, what compelled you?
It was the story. For some reason, Sephiroth seemed like the coolest villain that I'd seen up to that point. He just kind of locks himself in a room and reads all this medical texts and scientific studies that were done on him and just goes crazy. Plus, they hyped him up to be this huge badass soldier.
Well, I remember, like, you think Shinra is the bad guy, and I mean they are, but like when you start to leave Midgar, he just like freaking owns. By the way, do you notice I'm not using curse words this episode? I'm trying to make it feel like freaking feels weird. He freaking just owns all the Shinra people, and it was like, oh man, and the music is so good.
Yeah. Even still to this day. When you hear One Winged Angel.
So you could have like an RPG that takes place in like a hive city with like a ragtag group of hopefully not terrorists because then they'd be heretics, but maybe they're like, I don't know, gangers or freedom fighters or something. Would they do the materia system, do you think?
Probably not.
You could probably get like tech that does like digital lasers or like a teleporter or something like that.
Yeah. Various psycho abilities.
All right, Final Fantasy VII, a good entry, a strong one. Again, one of my tops, but didn't age as well as some of the other ones on this list. So now I'm going to be completely hypocritical and go to my number 5. You ready? So this is a tie between 2 N64 games, and just for a little reference before I get there, the way that I ranked these games is how much I want to still play them now. So there's like a timeless quality, how much I played them back then, and just in general how much happiness they brought to my life. So for me, it's a tie between 2 games that were basically the same game, just one came out a year later with some updates. WCW NWO Revenge and WWF No Mercy, 2 N64 wrestling games that both use the THQ like wrestling grapple system. I played dozens of hours of those, probably hundreds, with like my brother and my friends. And I grew up, in the South where like wrestling was kind of big, and I wasn't allowed to watch it, but I could play the video games. And man, I just love those so much. I don't know why. Listen, THQ, if you're out there, well, you don't exist anymore. I forgot. You get bought up / closed. Yeah. And they ended up making Dawn of War too. So there's a tie-in to Warhammer. But somebody, please go make a wrestling game in the vein of those. So what's the Warhammer tie-in? I don't really know because I could have chosen other fighting games. Like, Tom, what's your favorite fighting game? Like, does there one that sticks out to you?
I'm sure you have more to talk on this subject, but my next one was actually WrestleMania 2000 for N64.
Your number 4 was WrestleMania 2000? All right, so you go first, and then we can combine forces here.
So I kind of saw that, well, because it had the same grapple system and everything.
That was the second one in the trio of those games.
I saw that as if it could somehow be turned into the gladiatorial fights on Nuceria. I think that would be really cool.
I thought about that. Is that where Angron? No, that's not where Angron comes from.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that, and then so that's one idea, like gladiatorial combat, but it tends to be more like I'm gonna kill you as opposed to like I'm gonna do a pile driver on you. Mm-hmm. But it could work. The other one I was thinking is maybe like a Gorka Morka thing with like orc luchadors.
It would have the humor. Yeah.
Or here's okay. Oh, I've got it, Tom. I just came up with this. Are you ready? Trazon the Infinite. Is it Trazon or Trazon? It's Trazon, right?
Trazon with a Y, right? Trazon.
Yeah. Okay. I've never said that word out loud. I've read his name a bunch of times. So obviously he collects a bunch of stuff. He has this like stasis museum. What if it's his thing and he collects people from all the different races and he makes it so they can't kill each other, but they have to wrestle to amuse him?
I love it. Kind of like Smash Brothers.
Exactly. Okay.
Get on it.
Games Workshop, just take my money. Just you can make it N64 graphics. I'll pay full price. I don't care. Just please do this.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your favorite person in WrestleMania 2000?
Well, obviously the create a character.
Yeah, of course, it was the create a character. Did you have like a consistent person you would always make, or was it yourself, or what?
Yeah, so WrestleMania 2000 specifically, my group of friends in high school, one of them had a character named Dead Body Man. And I just loved how ridiculous that was, so I ended up creating it in every single game going forward from that point on.
That's amazing. Why was he a dead body man? Was he just like a naked guy or something?
No, I mean, he was wearing Triple H's pants and he had Jeff Hardy's face. He's just he was Dead Body Man.
God, that game was so good. I remember, and it's funny because when I played Revenge, I didn't know how like the special system worked, or that you could have. But in 2000, I think they started making it so you could do like your special move from like the corner. So you got some of the like the what was the Swanton Bomb? Was that Jeff Hardy's?
Yeah.
God, that was so fun. I always made, well, sometimes I made myself. Sometimes I made, my brother always had like a guy who would wear like a hockey mask who he called the Demon. Because again, we loved, it was like a Warhammer. We loved demons and stuff. So, but actually, I don't know. Do you know that the origin of my tag LS Demon is from Revenge?
Oh yeah.
So you remember that? Did you ever play Revenge or just WrestleMania 2000?
Yeah, all of those N64.
So do you remember in Revenge there was some WCW character who was like the Executioner? Mm-hmm. So we thought because there was the polygon like graphic quality was really bad, so he was wearing an Executioner hood, but it looked like it had bunny ears because like it had 2 points that stuck up too far like cones. So my friend made a joke that like, oh, that's the demon that you see when you take LSD. We didn't know what LSD was as kids. So we called him LS Demon Bunny of Chaos. And I was always LS Demon Bunny of Chaos. I renamed him to that because you could do that in the game. And that is the origin of my gamer tag / alias.
That makes sense.
Tripped out. Tell you what, next time we see each other, let's play that.
Yes. You make LS Demon Bunny of Chaos. I'll make Dead Body Man.
Yeah, I mean we can do like Horace Lupercal as like Triple H, Vince McMahon as the Emperor. But I do like that. Like if it was like a Trazon the Infinite, like gladiatorial combat, you could have like an Astartes wrestling a Tau. That would be awesome. Mm-hmm. That would be like the equivalent of like Spike Dudley going against like the Big Show.
Oh man, Spike Dudley.
Remember him? Yeah, and then
Yeah.
you let's see, man, an orc would fit into that really well. Eldar.
So Spike Dudley, that was the first time I was ever like, shit, I actually weigh more than a professional wrestler. I could totally do this.
That's awesome. Spike Dudley, pound for pound. That was just all right. We're getting down wrestling nerddom, which is too far. All right. So that was your number 4. So why'd you pick WrestleMania 2000 and not either of the other two?
Just because that was the one we played the most.
Okay.
But we played them all, but that one stuck in my head.
So we played Revenge a ton, and then I got WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy at the same time because there was a Blockbuster closing down. Remember that? And sell other stuff for like $1.
Yeah.
So I got that, and I remember WrestleMania 2000 was kind of fun, but the creative character was a little bit better on No Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I liked it. Okay.
So
that was your
Pillow Master.
Pillow
I just
Master?
remembered. Pillow Master. I just remembered my friend Marvin. His
What?
character. So he was a big, like, fat as you could make a character, and he wore all white, and he had a blue afro and the blue meanie's face, and his name was Pillow Master.
Listen, listeners, if you're out there and you have not played these games, go buy them, go emulate them. I'm not advocating to pirate things, but try to find a copy you can play. Actually, Def Jam Fight for New York and Def Jam Vendetta both use the same system.
Yeah, those are so good.
I really enjoyed those too. So if you want something a little more current, you could play those, and then you can throw a Flavor Flav in front of a subway train.
I was thinking Danny Trejo, but yeah.
Trejo? Yeah, Trejo's in that game. So it's like Omar Epps. There's a lot of bizarre character choices.
Yeah.
A lot of Ice-T was impossible to beat.
For me, it was Big Pun. I couldn't get past him for a while.
All right, so that's your number 4. My number 4, I'm gonna go with Resident Evil 4.
Mm-hmm.
So, truth be told, my favorite Resident Evil game of all time is Resident Evil 2 because of where I was when I played it. Like, that was, again, like a 6th, 7th grade. That was like a kind of rough couple years. I remember playing this game, and I just would turn off all the lights. My brother and I would play, and I was just enraptured. Like, it was a different kind of experience, and I loved it. I had so much fun. I played that game every single way. I unlocked everything. Do you remember in that game, if you beat it like within under 3 hours or something, you could play as a block of tofu?
Yeah, tofu.
So I did that. I played as I don't think I beat the tofu, but I almost did.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how good, like, much I love that game. But the problem is it didn't age well.
Mm-hmm.
As much as my nostalgia weighs heavy, I tried replaying it, and the tank controls, it's rough. So
Yeah.
So Resident. Go ahead.
It's funny how it seems so easy. Like, the controls when you're like back in the day as a kid playing it, you have no problem with it, but going back, it's just like impossible. I had GoldenEye 007.
Yeah.
As an honorable mention, but trying to play that game after the dual thumbsticks were invented.
Yeah, it's impossible.
Trying to play a first-person shooter with one thumbstick, it was like
how? For Dark. Like, I tried going back and playing them, and it's very hard to adjust.
Yeah. I don't even remember how.
You're right. Like, I think it's just like our brains got programmed because we played it so much. Yeah. But so I said, look, Resident Evil 4, it's a close second in the series. I played it a ton. I didn't like it as much as 2 because 2 was a little more, I don't know, like ominous, and 4 was a little more like you had more agency and you felt stronger, so it wasn't as scary. Although there were certainly some cool moments. But I think 4, I mean, it invented a whole genre of like the third person over the shoulder action game. The QuickTime button mash were great. It was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that game, and I played it every possible way and all the bonus rounds. And I think it would be a really good 40K game.
Okay.
Like you could inventory management was a big part of it. Collecting and saving resources. You could be exploring like a Space Hulk, or you could be exploring like, take your pick. Any of those like worlds or strongholds would be great.
Right.
And like the other piece was like the weapon upgrade. Like over time, you get the shotgun, and then the shotgun is kind of your go-to, and then you get like the Magnum. Dude, we went through a top 10 40K weapons. That'd be perfect.
Yeah. And the obvious zombies, nurglings,
Or poxwalkers.
Yeah.
Cultists, Tau,
Yeah. Cut and paste any of your enemies of the Imperium.
No, I mean they did do. Did you ever play the Space Marine game that came out in like 2012?
I don't think so.
It kind of sucked. I downloaded it on Steam kind of recently, so it had great voice acting and a good setting and graphics, but it was just really repetitive and boring, and you didn't really care. Like it got so boring because you're just shooting people with bolters, and the bolter's just as good as the melt-a-gun pretty much. And
was it a first person?
No, it was like a third person. It was kind of like Gears of War. I think that was more like a Gears of War than it was before, but it just didn't do it for me.
I'm thinking of Deathwatch. I played that one.
I didn't play that one. Is that any good?
Yeah. Grid-based combat, kind of like Final Fantasy Tactics.
Also a good game.
Yeah, except you're shooting at Tyranids.
But I think you do a Resident Evil one. Obviously, it's going to be you could do a lot of different ways. It could be an Imperial. You could have Astartes or a guard. It'd be cool. Like maybe there's like an Eldari who shows up and is like kind of a side character, and then kind of like they did in the game where you could play as Ada, who is like the secondary protagonist, the Deuteragonist, I think they call it. She had like a separate campaign, so you could have a couple different campaigns. Yeah, I'd bring it on. Come on, Games Workshop.
Get on it.
All right, what's your number 3, Tom?
Number 3. I'm going to go with BioShock.
Good game.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time playing that game. And I think it would translate fairly easily. A compliant planet, falls to chaos, and, the president or regent or whoever they have in charge, you have to kind of hunt him down, make a psychological thriller out of it.
Yeah, so let's see. BioShock, do you remember that first scene where you kind of get in the bathysphere and you hear Andrew Ryan speaking as you go underwater?
Mm-hmm.
I still get goosebumps when I see that.
Yeah.
No,
Definitely.
Says the man in Washington, it belongs to the poor. No, says the man in Moscow, it belongs to everyone. No, says the man in Rome, it belongs to the god. Tight game. What would be the plasmid equivalent?
That is a good question.
I guess.
Yeah. Is that something you can acquire and upgrade?
Maybe you find or you know what it could be. Maybe you're like a tech priest and you find I found a data slate that shows me how I can build a flamethrower for my hand.
Mm. Yeah, because there were weapon upgrades as well. Or
That's
was
true.
Or was that infinite? You could upgrade your weapons.
There were. Yeah, it was like the free the people, like Underground would leave you stuff.
Right.
Good game. Okay, so an FPS that's got some kind of RPG elements and has a real focus on the setting. I agree with you. Like that's huge. You got to focus on the setting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my number 3. This is one you might have on your list. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Diablo 2.
Ooh, good choice.
So Tom, obviously you're a player of Diablo 2, right?
A lot of time spent. I totally forgot that existed, to be honest. But most of my high school days wasted in front of the computer.
Hundreds of hours, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds of hours.
Mm-hmm.
So
with every class imaginable.
Oh yeah, God! All the classes were fun too. The Amazon was fun. The Necromancer was fun. The Barbarian was fun. Paladin kind of sucked. I didn't really like the Paladin. Druid was fun.
Mm-hmm.
What? Why? Now I have a reason. Why Diablo 2? Why is it better than Diablo 3?
I guess the controls. Diablo 3. They kind of right. That was you had the different powers mapped to the different buttons.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And it was like you kind of had like one or two powers that were your primary ones in Diablo 3. Like maybe there was a handful, but like Diablo 2, you had a lot more options, and there were like in some cases in a bad way, like it was a little overwhelming, and it was hard to kind of max min. But I think that was part of it for sure. For me personally, it took me a while to figure out like why Diablo 2 over 3, because I liked the classes in 3 okay. I thought it was fun because I got it for like Xbox and I played it with a controller, or 360 I guess was at that time. For me, there's two things. One, the story was just, boy, I have to censor myself here. It was freaking stupid with Diablo 3. It was just dumb. Just like there's a whole thing to be said. Like Diablo 2 gives you like little snippets, and you kind of have to figure things out for yourself. Diablo 3 was like somebody from Disney came over and was like, okay, well, we have to make them like special. They're the chosen one, and then we want them to be referred. Like there's gonna be more talking, and they're going to meet all of the people in the last one that were kind of hinted at. Like in Diablo 2,
Yeah.
like you hear about Mephiston and you hear about Baal, but like you don't meet all of these like people until the very end, so the stakes are high. And like Diablo 3, like you're just constantly like wailing on these like, oh, this demon's even more powerful, and you just like so your feeling of insignificance is lessened, which I think was a big part of Diablo 2. And a lot of people say it was the color palette change too. I think maybe that's part of it, but I think just in general, the attitude toward the world and the enemies, it was just less grimdark, less Lovecraftian, and more like, stereotypical supernatural TV garbage.
Power creep.
That was a rant. I apologize. Tom, did anything in there make sense?
Yeah, no, I get it. It's not the kind of thing you think about, like, hey, how come this game was better than this game? But yeah, I think you're right.
So with Diablo 3 or Diablo 2, how do we make it in the Warhammer 40K universe? So I've been playing Inquisitor Martyr, and it's close. Like it is a loot grinding, action RPG. It's okay. What do they need to do to make it? It's fine. If you're a 40K fan, it's definitely worth checking out. If you're not, it's not really. And the reason I say it's worth it, they do an awesome job with the setting. There's good voice acting. The story's pretty good. And you're on a rogue trader as an Inquisitor, and it actually shows you like traveling to different systems, and you feel like you're part of the universe. The actual game mechanics are repetitive and boring. The progression has no stakes and doesn't feel particularly that interesting. I'm playing right now as the Psyker class, the Inquisitor. It's okay. And the difficulty is all over the place. It's just there's a lot of things that they tried to do that they just didn't quite get over the bar. So a Diablo 2 version, I'd want more diversity of people. I'd want skill tree progression that actually matters, more variety, and just maybe a little bit more world building to make it better than Inquisitor Martyr.
Fair enough.
All right, rant over. Tom, you're number 2. What do you got?
Number 2, the most recent game on my list that I have invested God knows how many hours, Dark Souls.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Which one?
The first one specifically.
All right, so I'm going to reveal my number 2 because it's in the same category. It's Bloodborne. Okay, so
I had a feeling that would be on your list.
Yeah, I love that guy. All right, so Tom, why Dark Souls?
So Dark Souls, it's already grimdark, right? You've got the aesthetic there, and it could very easily be taking place inside the Eye of Terror, on a demon world. Just swap out the mindless zombies with bloodletters, and you got yourself a hack and slash good time. Difficult as all hell game, but so much fun.
I 100% agree. The things that I love about these games, the sense of accomplishment when you actually finish something, and then the feeling of successful character progression. As you slowly build up your person and you find new weapons and you kind of get them to a place where you feel pretty confident. I think I chose Bloodborne over Dark Souls. I think for some similar reasons, I just like the setting a little bit better. It was a little more Lovecraftian. But I agree with you. It could be an easy swap to any 40K environment. It could be an Eye of Terror world. It could be a world in Uprising. It could be Chaos Infected, an Orc invasion even. The lot you could do. You could be a lot of different characters. Give some options for classes. Inquisitors. What have you. You could. I'm sure like your stereotypical good races like your Eldar would fit in pretty easy. Like who else? I'm always conscious. Like I don't want to be too Imperial focused because people get salty about that. So
the only bad thing about those games is that you can't play through it for the first time ever again. You know what I mean? Like the first time you play it and it just blows your mind, and then after that you're just like, oh, okay, I figured out how this boss fight works. I know I know what I have to do here, and it's still fun, but that first time, it really has that impact on you.
That like discovery feeling.
Yeah.
Like I've never been more happy when I like open a door.
Like, oh, it's a fog gate.
Yeah.
A new section of map.
It's a shortcut. A shortcut. Right. I won't have to die anymore.
There's a bonfire not too far from here.
Yeah. Okay, I love those games. Yeah, awesome. Please make a Souls-like in the 40K universe that doesn't suck. All right, here we are. That was easy. Like we just agreed on that. There was nothing else we had to discuss.
All right, next.
What's your number one, Tom?
Number one. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Okay. I didn't know you liked that game that much.
Yeah, so that was the first game that I sat down and played with my brother, and we would just like take turns and try to get through. I guess it was story mode, progressing through the game, trying to get high scores and whatnot. But yeah, we spend a lot of time playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. And I see that as a Hive World ganger just shredding around a Hive World, causing chaos.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
It would be a little bit more tongue in cheek, like, oh, you heretic, I'm gonna get you, stop spray painting stuff. But yeah, it'd be fun.
Right. Just be like an Asher, just grinding on everything.
Or it could be like you could be a Drukari in like Kamarog.
Yeah, true. That'd be fun.
I would definitely play that. Have you played any of the newer, like what was the last Tony Hawk game that you played and you were like, oh, this is really good?
I probably only made it to like 3.
Well, I feel like 2 I think is, I don't know if 2 or 3 people say is the best, but after that like they just dropped off. It got really crappy.
Yeah. I think the last one I played was the one that had a demon as a hidden character.
Yeah.
So I forgot who it was, but their special move was the Christ Air, where they just kind of like, T-pose like they're crucified, and you get points for as long as you could hold it. And then the demon, her special move was the Antichrist Air, and she did it upside down.
Oh, was it the Demon S? This was Tony Hawk 3.
Yeah, so that was the last one I played now.
Wow. Yeah, apparently it was called the AC Air because it was censored.
Yeah.
That's fun. All right. So if it's Tony Hawk, like who would be the celebrity in the 40K universe they'd name it after?
Huh. That's a good question.
Like Sly Marbo?
Pro Skater.
Creed Pro Skater. Maybe like Cal Jericho.
Chris Jericho.
But we're gonna get off topic here. But have you seen like that Chris Jericho is getting a huge backlash because he came back and apparently he's chubby?
No, I didn't see that.
I mean, yeah. So there was a whole Twitter or I don't know, whatever, some kind of social media backlash because he came out and he just is not in shape or something.
Yeah.
He's 50, by the way.
Wow.
Edge is 47. I don't know why that came up, but it's true.
Chris Jericho has a radio thing on satellite radio. I think it's like either Turbo or the Metal channel. He plays a bunch of songs that he likes.
Well, he was in a metal band, Fozzy, right?
Yeah, and it sounds exactly like you would picture Chris Jericho singing to a metal band. Sounds exactly like you would picture.
Chris Jericho, if you're out there, come on the show, man. We're fans.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell everybody to stop body shaming you, and we'll give you a platform to scream at haters.
Break the walls down.
Break the walls down. Dude, when I was a kid, my brother did the walls of Jericho on me once, and man, it hurt because he wasn't doing it right. It was like all on my neck, and I was like, ugh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll admit we did some backyard wrestling in high school.
I mean, I definitely did. Except
half
like
tag team champions.
Actually, you and I were talking like 10 or 15 years ago. You and I were like, well, it must have been 10. We're like, hey, we should try to be wrestlers, which was probably a really stupid idea.
Let me just gain 55 pounds of muscle and.
That was the deal, right? Because I was in better shape back then. I was like, okay, Tom, you gain 50 pounds of muscle and I'll do it.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It didn't. But I could be a high flying, speedy guy. The Jeff Hardys and the
Spike Dudleys. All right, you ready for my number one?
Yeah.
Chrono Trigger.
Perfect.
Love this game. I've played it 4 or 5 times on like 3 different platforms. I played the PlayStation version and the Super Nintendo version from Blockbuster. Could never buy one. I played the Game Boy. Was there a Game Boy version? I don't know. I played an emulator. I also just bought it on Steam, and actually Gabrielle and I are going through it, and she loves it. Mm-hmm. So I guess Final Fantasy VII didn't age well. Chrono Trigger aged even better. It's really sharp. The storyline is really focused. The characters are really timeless, and it kind of has like the fun of Final Fantasy with the magic of like a Studio Ghibli movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the music's incredible. So we talked about like what would an RPG look like in the 40K universe. So we talked Final Fantasy VII. I think Chrono Trigger's like the time travel probably wouldn't work, but just like a old-fashioned RPG of the 40K universe with maybe some of the new sensibilities around like leveling and game progression, but some kind of character-based RPG. Like the Final Fantasy VII remake is probably a good prototype.
So I was thinking, like, what would a JRPG centered on 40K even look like? Yeah, turn-based, ATB gauge, all that fun stuff.
But I mean, like, Final Fantasy VIII was kind of in a, semi-futuristic. Yeah, it was an awful game.
No, 8 was garbage.
It sucks. I mean, I liked the gun sword, but the rest of it was just hot, fetid garbage.
And I want to address that. I've had this discussion about how garbage 8 was, and somebody was saying, it just was it you were directly comparing it to 7. So maybe a couple of years ago, I said I'm going to play Final Fantasy VIII with a totally open mind, no preconceived notions, and it was still just a pile of hot garbage. I couldn't even get through it.
It was the story. Like I never beat it.
Yeah.
I got to the 3rd disc, and there's a point where spoilers for a game that's like 20 years old, but there's a point where all of the main characters realize that they all grew up in the same orphanage. 3 discs into the game, they realized this because they had amnesia, and the main villain was their orphanage operator or matron or something. And I was like a 13-year-old kid. I opened the PlayStation, I took the disc out, and I never played it again because I was like,
she does end up joining your party as a playable character.
Yeah, okay, so let's compare. Would you rather have, what was her name again? Like Medea? I was like Medea. No, I don't think that's the name of the witch.
Close. Idea.
Idea, okay.
Just the idea.
Sorry, Tyler Perry. Not your character. Would you rather have her or Magus?
Yeah, good point.
Like Magus is amazing. He does dark matter, which is still my favorite spell in any Final Fantasy game. That was a heel turn or a face turn that I did not expect. Adia, whatever, dude. I don't care. So Warhammer 40K, an RPG. Get me a cast of characters. You could do a hive. You could do a craft world. You could do just not Tau. Please, just not Tau. um, you know, make it happen, guys. That would be super fun. I would, and you could explore and kind of get to know the setting. I think that'd be great.
Mhm.
All right, we covered everything, Tom.
Yeah.
Is there anything we didn't cover?
I did have some honorable mentions.
All right, what do you got? What do you got in the honorable mention category?
I think I already brought up GoldenEye, but I also played a lot of Halo back in the day. But that seemed a little on the nose. You know, you're already a space marine killing Xenos. And Mass Effect, I played the trilogy. I played through.
That's because that'd be a great Inquisitor game.
Yeah, I played through those quite a bit. That trilogy.
You know, I played a ton of Mass Effect. I played all three of them, and it's weird. I loved it while I was playing it, but I've never wanted to play it again.
So that was the first time. So I played the original Mass Effect like when it was new, right? Played it through. You know, you make all these choices that affect the story. And then when the second one came out, the choices you made in the first one carried over, and I didn't like how that came out. So I was like, shit, all right, now I have to play the first one again. Made different choices, played through the second one, and then the exact fucking same thing happened with the third one, until I finally got the outcome that I wanted.
Good game though, like it definitely a great game, masterful storytelling. It would be a great vehicle for 40K universe.
The Reapers, you know, they can be like old ones. Well, the old ones are dead, but even Necrons, yeah. Eldar.
Yep. That's a great call. Any other honorable mentions?
No, I think that's all I have.
So I had like Final Fantasy VI. I love Final Fantasy VII are all in my like top 10. But you know, like, one RPG, all RPGs, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked Soul Calibur, so like another fighting game could be pretty cool.
Yeah.
What about like, here's an idea, right? What about like a Mario Kart, but it's like Gorka Morka drag racing?
Well, I feel like there was a tabletop version.
Yeah.
Orc racing, and like you actually moved the terrain to simulate going fast, right? Was that a thing?
Yeah. I think that's right. I've never played it. I know of it, but I think that could be fun. You know, or if you want to do something cool, you could have like an open world, like take over Gorka Morka kind of thing. If you want to make it fun, it could be like Asdrubal Vec gets bored or Trazen gets bored, where they team up and get bored, and then they get like all the best racers from all the races.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the Eldar, the Tyranids, all that stuff, and they make them race. That'd be super fun. I'd play the heck out of that.
Mario Kart.
Mario Kart, Warhammer Kart. Do we miss anything else?
Literally any game, if you can play as an orc in the middle of a WoW. I don't even care the format. If you can be an orc, I think that'd be pretty cool.
Amen. Definitely, we don't need any more like Final Fantasy Tactics clones. Like, you know, Mordheim was like that. Necromunda Underhive. They're hard to get right, and even when they get right, they're kind of over time. So I think we covered it. That's a lot of video game types that could be included.
So why hasn't this happened yet?
We'll see. I mean, look, there's been some good war, like, you know, Total War and Total War 2, Warhammer are good. Dawn of War was good. The first and the second one. The third one was kind of meh. There's been a lot of just garbage too, like Space Hulk, Fire Warrior. Oh, the Dark Omen was okay. That was like a Warhammer Fantasy from back in the day. All right. Anyway, get on it, guys. Make those games. Tom and I will cover them. Otherwise, we've been talking long enough. I think that's the end of this.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Long enough for a podcast.
So we'll post this. We're gonna post weekly on Wednesdays. So if you have thoughts, let us know them. Definitely reach out to us with any comments or thoughts. Otherwise, Tom, what do you always say? Mash the like and subscribe button.
Mash it.
Let us know what you want us to cover. Like, obviously, we're really deep nerds. A lot of the podcasts and shows that are out there, they try to cover like the hobby part of it, but we like the culture and the lore part too. So if there's something you're itching to, hear two jerk faces go over, or at least one jerk face and one reasonably well-mannered dude and Tom.
Reasonably well-mannered jerk face.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thanks for joining us for 40 Cray. We'll see you next time.
Adios.
Yeah. Okay. Love it.